Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today, either in person now or if you're watching this video later. My name is John Price. I am the president of New Jersey Nats, and we welcome you to our second spring installment of the second Sunday series. It's a lot of twos. Thank you so much for joining us this week. We are really excited to finish up our two-part series on admissions processes. Last time was on working with students who are auditioning for college musical theater auditions. And this is going to be on the Young Artist Program audition process and also what's involved in those actual programs. And I'm very excited to welcome our guests today. And for that, I will turn things over to board member Dorothy Trader to introduce our guest.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I am Dorothy Trader. As John mentioned, I'm an at-large member of the board for New Jersey Nats, and I'm so excited to introduce Alan Perriello, who has been a colleague and friend of my family for many years. Alan was recently appointed Director of Artistic Administration at Des Moines Metro Opera, and previously he was Head of Music at Minnesota Opera, Director of the Young Artist Programs at the Glimmerglass Festival, and Head of Music and Director of the Opera Studio at Arizona Opera. Alan himself received training as a young artist from the Merola Opera program and was a member of the Adler Fellowship at San Francisco Opera. He has served on music staffs of many leading opera companies in America, including Pittsburgh, Seattle, Boston Lyric, the list goes on and on. We are so thrilled to have Alan with us today to discuss the audition process for classical young artist programs, and I can't wait to learn from him today. So thank you for joining us, Alan. We're thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Dorothy, and thank you, John. It's great to be with you all today. I am phoning in or zooming in from Indianola, Iowa, where I've been for about 2 months now. Indianola, Iowa is the home of Simpson College and the home of Des Moines Metro Opera. Des Moines Metro Opera is celebrating its 50th anniversary season this summer coming up, which I'm thrilled to be a part of the team now in a full-time capacity, though I was on the music staff here for 6 summers once upon a time. And I'm actually currently calling from the former home of Robert Larson, who passed away just about a year ago. Robert was the founder of the company and longtime faculty member at Simpson College. And we're all, of course, familiar with those Schirmer aria anthologies that Dr. Larson was the editor on. And we're so grateful to him for that, and for his vision to bring great opera, great performing arts to Central Iowa, and the impact that he's had on the industry and our art form at large. I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and have found myself here just from Minneapolis most recently. And this past fall, I was part of what would be my final rounds of audition tours and travels with both Minnesota Opera and the Glimmerglass Festival. And I look forward to continuing that with Des Moines Metro Opera going forward. But over the last 9 years of my career, I've been part of overseeing the application, recruitment, and audition processes for various programs: Arizona, Glimmerglass in Minnesota, and now Des Moines. And each program is different, each place is different, each company has its different way of doing things, and look forward to being part of that process here at Des Moines going forward. But to briefly speak to where I'm coming from with the Glimmerglass Festival, that falls into the summer program category. That is a festival that usually is 12 or 13 weeks long each summer for the young artists. And then for Minnesota Opera, that falls into the full season component. That was usually an 8 or 9 month contract. And of course, we have many of those kinds of programs around the country as well. With Glimmerglass, depending on the year, we'd be looking for anywhere from 30 to 55 young artists, depending on the size of the season and the needs of the performance needs. With Minnesota, we were normally looking at a cohort of 5 to 10. And within that cohort, we're looking at singers, pianists, assistant conductors, assistant directors. I'm going to focus most of our time today, of course, on singers because that's what we're here for today. But with each of these companies, we have always used Yap Tracker as our primary application platform, which I'm sure we are all familiar with at this point, and is a centralized hub for applications and ability to upload your information and leave it there and be able to pick and choose putting it into the various applications that come up. And we as companies are responsible for putting up the opportunity listing where we can give details about the company, about the season ahead, what opportunities are going to be available, whether they be performance or cover opportunities, and maybe some information on pay and accommodations and other things that you might want to take into consideration before applying. And as I'm sure we are all aware, these programs are all extremely competitive, and there's a great pool of applicants each year, a wide variety of ages and experiences coming from all kinds of different places around the world and different academic programs. To speak specifically to the Glimmerglass application pool this past season, so those that would have applied for what is the coming summer season of 2022, there were 1,124 applications from singers, 10 applications from assistant conductors, 23 from assistant directors, and 25 from pianist coaches. Of that pool of nearly 1,200 people, 500 were invited to auditions, either in Cincinnati, in Houston, New York, or virtually. And then of those 500, there ended up being positions for 36 individuals this coming summer, 25 opera-focused singers, 3 focused musical theater singers, 4 assistant directors, 2 pianists, and 2 conductors. And just a little bit of statistics, and then we'll leave some of the numbers for now. Of that singer application pool, 48% of the applicants are sopranos, 20% are mezzos, 15% tenors, 11% baritones, 3% bass baritones, 2% basses, and 1% to the countertenors. Similarly, Des Moines Metro Opera received 893 applications this summer for 41 apprentice positions, also holding auditions in Cincinnati, Houston, New York, and virtually. And then also on top of that, they did Atlanta, Philadelphia, and Des Moines. Of course, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, any number of places around the country also serve as audition hubs, but tend to be centralized to those places. And the first step, of course, to the YAP process is putting that application together. And of course, there will be basic questions about contact and voice type and where you're studying and where you're hoping to do your audition. Some applications might include questions about language study, your movement and dance training, maybe experience playing other instruments, some special skills that might be applicable to the season ahead or that are of interest. A resume will always be asked of, and generally places are going to ask that that resume is formatted to fit onto one page. And I think that's very important to figure out how to get all of that information condensed in a way to be streamlined well, to fit there well, be formatted beautifully. I do always recommend that resumes be submitted, whether it be an application or an email, always as a PDF form. Please do not send them as Word documents because you never know what's going to happen to your formatting when it comes as a Word document. And we want to actually see what you're all about. If I don't want to spend time today talking about how to build your resume, but Opera America has a number of resources on its website, including a page if you're to search for resumes and cover letters for singers. It's going to have some information about how to put that, best practices for putting that together. We'll show some examples, both of very good resumes and some other very not good resumes, just so you're getting a sense of the best way to put that together. Also, on the application, there might be requests for professional references or for recommendation letters. I have always erred on the side of asking for references instead of letters, because I want to wait until we get to that audition process, see who we've heard, see who we want to learn more about. And these people need to be, of course, people that can speak about your work, about their experience working with you. It should be a range of people, likely a voice teacher, a coach, a director, a conductor, and people that can speak to what you've been to work with as recently as possible. You know, there might be great mentors in your life and people that a singer values their input, but this person hasn't seen them perform in a few years or hasn't worked with them recently. And the more that can be recent, that is so much more helpful if we're needing to make those phone calls. Of course, we'll ask for a headshot, merely just so that as we are going through the process later to keep track of a good visual of who you were in the room, to when we're talking about those hiring decisions. We're going to ask for your audition list of repertoire that you're hoping to offer. And all of the companies that I've worked with tend to ask for anywhere between 4 and 5 selections each year, a mix of styles, a contrast between pieces. We want to see a little bit of everything that you can do. Within that list, there's usually an opportunity for a musical theater piece, perhaps an art song or an oratorio piece. Just be sure to look very specifically at what each company is asking for, because no two companies are alike. Every company has different priorities and different things that they're looking for. And so much of this process of breaking in is handling this process as well as you can and reading those details and making sure that you're keeping track of the nitty-gritty differences between each place, so that you're not thrown off or thrown out of the pool for a simple clerical error. Also, within that list, you might consider including some repertoire that is from the season ahead of a role that you're hoping to perform or to cover. It's not necessarily required. I think the priority is offering things that suit you best and that you will perform to your best. I don't think anybody wants something that is in the season that you think you should offer, but maybe you don't have well enough prepared, or doesn't suit you as well as some other things. In that case, you may need to leave it to the panel to imagine that, okay, they might not have that particular aria, but I bet that will be a good fit for them. And if you have something that is similar in style or similar in showing the demands of that role, that is, of course, very helpful in these processes. And then there's the pre-screening recordings, whether they be audio or video. I have always asked for video recordings instead of audio only. I think video I find to be very important because I want to see what has happened as a complete take. We all know we can edit together audio in many different ways and can splice things together. And while that might be nice for a commercial recording, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for live performance and who can execute these pieces in completion. These should be contrasting pieces, of course, and the quality of the video is very important. Now, that doesn't mean you need to spend a lot of money on it. There are great recordings that come from iPhones and tablets and things that you already have. You do not necessarily need to have a recording engineer to make a good recording, right? What we want is an honest, clear sound. Be cognizant of the space that you're recording in. Often, the spaces that feel the best to sing in are the worst to record in, because there's going to be a lot of reverb, a lot of echo, a lot of challenges for the listener to really hear the core of the sound and to hear the text and to hear the music clearly. So it doesn't have to be a completely dead, dry space, but something that is on the drier side usually will record better. You might have an external microphone, you might not. But again, whatever is a good, honest representation of your performance of the piece is what is most important to us. For video, something that at least shows 3/4 of your body, but also not too far away either. We do want to be able to see the performance, and I think sometimes people think, oh, it's going to be great if I can show maybe a rehearsal or performance from an opera performance, and the camera was located in the back of the theater and we can't even see you. And that's not helpful, even though it might have been with orchestra, it might felt like your greatest performance of that. That doesn't help us get to see you and get to know you. So I'd encourage everybody to take a look at another Opera America resource, Remote Audition Guidelines. I was part of the team in the spring and summer of 2020, when we all had to go completely virtual, that sat together and came up with this document of best practices for making those videos, both for pre-screening and for what was to be an entire season of virtual auditions. Some companies might ask for a monologue. I've not been part of one of those companies, but do pay attention to that and be thinking ahead of what you might want to offer if you're asked to have that for your audition. And I mentioned to age limits. You know, some companies do have age limits. Both Glimmerglass and Minnesota did not. We are generally looking for people that are in their studies or about to complete their studies or are out of their studies. But people that are getting started, getting their foot into the performing industry, and who will be served well by this opportunity. We have a wide range of ages in both of the programs. Something that, as I'm getting to know the Des Moines process that I've seen in the application, is they list an age limit of 33, but they have a note that says, if you feel there should be special consideration for an application beyond that age range, please be in touch with us. So the company is very much open to discussing that and seeing if that might be a good fit. After the screening process is done, we are sending out notifications on Yap Tracker to those that are no longer part of the audition process, and for then those who are granted an audition and where that will be. I think it's important for everybody, as you're doing these applications, keep a good notebook, keep a journal of when you're expecting to hear from these places, so that you can keep track of when it's going to be time to perhaps book that travel or get that release from school, whatever that might be. And particularly with Yap Tracker, there's the feature of self-scheduling auditions. Some companies might come back to you and say, your audition is at this date and at this time. I've always used the self-schedule that as soon as we send out the notification that you've been granted an audition, it behooves the singer to get on the platform as soon as possible to pick the best date and time that works for them. If there ends up being some issues, of course, be in touch with the company and they'll do their best to accommodate. But the more that you can be on top of knowing when that's coming and ready to get that worked out, the better that is for everybody. At the live auditions, I've generally done an 8-minute audition slot where the singer brings in first piece of their own choice, and then we choose a second piece from the list. Perhaps depending on the length of the first piece, that might be all that we do get to hear. And we do say in the listing that you'll sing at least one complete piece, and if time permits, there will be at least a part of a second piece. But I think it's important for everybody to think about how those combinations are going to work, practice going from that first aria into each of your second, third, fourth, fifth options. Know how that feels, routine that for yourself, because while there might be trends of, you might think this piece always gets called on after that first piece, there might be somebody that then asks for something else, and keeping that fresh. And also knowing the possibilities for how that second piece might get divided up. Perhaps if it is a Handel aria, for example, maybe the panel will say, can we start at the B section and then go into the return of the A? Or can we do just the cavatina or just the cabaletta? Or we're going to start and we're going to stop you at some point. Know what all of those possibilities are, game plan what that might be, and be ready for that. Again, review really well in the notification what they need you to bring, how many copies of your resume, what other materials might be asked for. And that audition binder that you bring with you is incredibly important in how it's put together and what information is in there. As a pianist myself, and having spent many years playing auditions and seeing the binders that come in, those materials can make or break the success of an audition. Make sure every page is there, make sure all the material is clear and legible. The cleaner the score, the better. And any information that you include in there, it better be things that you're actually going to do. It's one thing to put aspirational markings, but make sure that what you've marked in there is what you're actually doing. The more that you can shorten those introductions and those postludes, the better, so that we can maximize the amount of time that we're getting to hear you sing and perhaps get to know you a little bit better. Cuts marked well. You don't have to write in every note of every cadenza or every ornament, but if there's something that might throw off the pianist, make sure that's marked, and know how to talk about that as quickly as you can. If the pianist asks for what your tempo is, know how efficiently you can explain that. And then when a certain aria is asked upon, know if there's one or two little things that you need to show very quickly, but limit that time, be really efficient with that. One thing that has come about with the virtual audition process in the last 2 years was a number of companies working together. We called ourselves unofficially the Consortium, but worked together to align the process for submitting a virtual audition. And I expect that to continue into the future. It has certainly helped with accessibility to auditions, both financially and travel-wise, because sometimes we can't, you can't get everywhere you want. Maybe you have a school performance or a family commitment and you can't get to that audition. And there's only so many resources we each have to get to any set of auditions. So having that virtual audition has really opened things up to a lot of people, which is fantastic. And in the consortium, what we were doing was putting together our lists of who we granted auditions to, and then collecting an audition list, a new audition list from each singer. And then each member of the consortium would see that the singer wanted to start with a certain aria, and then we could vote on what we would hope to hear as the second piece. And then whichever aria got the most votes won. And then those lists would go back out to the singers, and we would say, here's your starter that you had listed, and here's the aria we'd like you to record. And we asked that you record these two arias back to back without break, just like you would do in a live audition setting. And you have 2 weeks to make that recording and get that video submitted. And that one video will count for all members of the consortium companies as your virtual audition. So if you are planning to apply for a virtual audition, again, know what that time frame is, know what that 2 week period or 1 week, however different companies might do it, so that you can plan where you're going to record, who's going to play for you if you're going to use a live pianist. I think that also is worth noting as we go forward, if places have requirements on using a live pianist or if tracks are allowed. But have your game plan for that recording, and possibility to re-record if you need and have options for a second day. You know, there's pros and cons to the virtual audition process. Of course, we all wish that we could hear everybody live in the room and in the same comparable acoustic. But you get one shot at that audition. And whereas with the virtual audition, you have a little more control over where you record, when you record. If you're not happy with the take, you can certainly get a do-over on that. And yeah, be weighing the pros and cons of those options. I think there's also maybe some concern from people that, well, they're not gonna, thinking that the company might not hire anybody from the virtual auditions. And I can say for Glimmerglass this year, of the 28 singers we have, 7 of them were from the virtual audition process. And so I know of many other companies that are taking it seriously. So as long as you've submitted a good representative recording, I think you're a viable candidate for the position. In looking to the live audition, whatever you choose to wear, make sure you can move well in it, that you feel comfortable in it. And just like you rehearse in a costume for a production, make sure that you've rehearsed in what you're going to wear and that you really feel good in what you wear, particularly in your shoes. It's so often you see people come in and look very uncomfortable in what footwear they have, and what's more about the performance than what the shoes are. So make sure you're feeling good about that. When it comes to choosing that repertoire, of course we want a mix of standard and new repertoire. We want what's going to show you at your best. I'm always game to hear newer pieces, to hear things I've never heard before. Be thoughtful about what that piano part is like and how well a pianist might handle that on first read. As we know, it takes a while for a newer piece to fall into the standard known repertoire of audition pianists. But use your pianists and your teams to evaluate, okay, how successfully is this going to go with somebody who might not know it or who's never played it before? And also know how to explain your piece. I might say, hey, I know nothing about this opera or this aria. Can you tell me a little bit about it? First and foremost, what's more important to me than the story, I might want to know a little bit about the story, is what's the range? What's the tessitura of it like? Is it fast? Is it slow? Is there coloratura? Give me a sense of what the style of the piece is, and then perhaps I'll ask, okay, tell me a little bit about this character. Set up the premise of this. But being able to articulate that information is really important if there's something that might be newer to a panel. And knowing, keeping an eye, of course, on what the company is hiring for, right? And know what the opportunities are. There's some companies that are only going to be able to hire for the very specific opportunities that are listed. And there are others that might have those shows, but also have some more wildcard opportunities for people that might not fit a certain role or show, but will be featured really well in a concert and can have music that is tailor selected for them. And what else about that? Because for the hiring process, we want everybody to come in and do their best. We want to know if we can trust you with the opportunity that we have to fill. And do you have the skills in place to do the job well? Is there a potential to grow into the opportunity? How well did you execute the various challenges in your repertoire that can show whether or not you are ready for the specific opportunity? There is so much in a hiring process that is not in the control of the singer. But what is in control of the singer is the selection of repertoire and the execution of the repertoire, and making sure that that is put together as well as possible at the highest possible level. And then that's beyond that is out of your control. So when you're setting goals for auditions, of course we want to go in and say, my goal is to get the job. But that isn't in your control. What is in your control is how well you do that day and how well you set yourself up for success. From the materials that you have to the way that you bring yourself into bringing that story to life and singing that music. And that's where you should focus on how that went on any given day. And I think it's important for people to keep some sort of audition journal or audition notebook. What did you sing? What was called on? Who was the pianist? What was the energy you felt in the room? How were you feeling? Where are you in this process with these pieces? And knowing that just because it's a no one year doesn't mean it's a no forever. We are keeping diligent track of every audition each year. Yap Tracker, on the administrator side, you see who has applied before, if they've been in their application, if they've been granted an audition before, if they received an audition but did not receive the job. And then in that screening and audition process, I'm going back and looking at my notes on what each singer did in the past. Are they offering the same repertoire? Is it different repertoire? It's okay to offer the same repertoire, but I hope that it has grown from the previous year. I'm going to be looking at, okay, what were these things that were really exciting and what were these things that need improvement? And how has that changed from year to year? And seeing how people put in the work and do that diligent, focused growth is really important in tracking people. There's people that we hear 3 or 4 times before we hire them. So that's something to keep in consideration as you're applying, and knowing that, and keeping track of the letter or the response that you get from the company. Some companies may include a special note that says, well, we don't have an opportunity for you this year. We would love to hear you again in the future. Keep note of those companies because they really mean that and are going to want to hear you again in a future year. I think that's initially most of what's on my initial thoughts to get out, but let's do some questions.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Alan. I just had a few things jotted down that I wondered if we could speak to. So before we kind of get into some questions I have about your specific sort of topics you've introduced so far, I wonder if you might tell me just a little bit about what a young artist does. So you're through the audition process. You have come as a young artist to Des Moines. What are my responsibilities? What do I do? What is daily life like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll speak to the summer programs first, which tend to have larger cohorts because these companies most often aren't going to have a local chorus. So the young artists are going to do a full range of being the members of the chorus, to singing smaller roles, perhaps even singing some leading roles, depending on the company and how they utilize their young artists. And then usually having every single role covered because these are longer runs of performances. Well, really, we would hope that there would be coverage in all places, but that's honestly not always the case. But particularly in summer programs, they're looking to make sure everything is covered. And at the start of the season, there's going to be chorus music rehearsals, coachings ahead of those stagings that are going to start, and then a pretty intense bunch of weeks leading up to opening because most summer festivals are working in repertory, rehearsing and performing multiple shows at the same time. So there's coming in incredibly well prepared because there's not much time once you get there if you're not ready to go. And that is definitely taken into consideration for how that summer is going to go for you, and how honestly the rest of your career may look, and how well you're considered and how well you are looked upon. But within the performing season, which will be keeping track of all of these different assignments in your head, and keeping your health and keeping your vocal health through all of it. There are often many representatives from the industry coming around to see performances, and usually some focused audition days near the end of each summer. At Glimmerglass, we would usually have 2 of these days in August, where we'd have anywhere from 25 to 40 guests each of those days. And each singer would get an opportunity to sing 1 aria or 1 selection for those panelists, where they're provided a resume, a repertoire list of things that are also part of your repertoire, but also then see these industry individuals seeing the young artists in performances, whether those be concerts or main stage shows. A lot of attention from the music staff, whether that be individual coachings, looking towards assignments coming up in the following school year or following season for people. At Des Moines, the focus of the apprentice program is through the scenes programs. There are 5 or 6 scenes programs scheduled throughout the season, where each apprentice is assigned 2 or 3 scenes total. And they have the opportunity to submit ahead of time things that they would hope to sing scenes from. And we take that into consideration as we're making those selections. And they are staged very much in an opera workshop, black box kind of style, with just piano. So that's a little bit on the side of the summer programs. And then in the year-long programs, that many of the same kinds of things, perhaps not chorus involvement, because there's often a local chorus that takes care of that. But again, roles, covers, roles of various sizes throughout the main stage season. Usually a more robust training element, because the summer programs are so focused on getting a bunch of performances together in a short period of time. The year-long programs are going to include more focused language study, movement work, more career consultation. Finance classes were a big part of what we had in Minnesota. Sometimes professional or life coaching work as well. And also more opportunities for community engagement and being part of, whether they be lectures, donor events, work with community partners, and building up energy and enthusiasm for the season and the artists in the local community.
Fabulous. Dorothy, you've got something.
I have many questions. Thank you. This has been really a very educational talk about where the audition process is kind of evolving in the classical music world. And so I have a few questions actually for you about those singers who might be either very young or who might be in the young phase of their career, regardless of age, and those people who might have kind of a shorter resume, outside of enlarging the font or something to fill out an entire page. Are there things that you would look for as an administrator that could show you the promise or the direction that this singer is going in, even if they don't have the actual experience yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think before diving into that a little bit, I think it's important for a beginning singer to spend some time getting to know who's in the roster of a program at different companies, and what is their level of experience, where are they coming from, what is their background. Find recordings, where are they in their level of execution of their repertoire and performance. And you'll notice how some programs may be more tailored and geared towards people at the very beginning of that journey, and then others that might be tailored more to people that are really on the cusp of moving into the profession. And there's a wide range there. And that I think will help then that singer think about, okay, what am I ready to apply for? Now, of course, if a company thinks you're not ready, they may just not grant you the live audition. And that's something to pay attention to. But instead of just applying to everything, that certainly is an option, but I would encourage people to be more focused in how they think about that, and building those steps from one kind of program to the next kind of program. And we have people in the various programs that have very small resumes. We have people in the programs with maybe larger, more filled out resumes. But we're looking at, again, the level of skill in the moment in relation to the profile of the assignment we have to offer, have to fill. There are sometimes people that even at the largest of festivals, or what might be considered the most prestigious levels, have maybe more of an entry-level person that they see extreme potential, extreme excitement out of that person, and the assignment package is rather low pressure. There's a lot of chorus work and maybe a smaller understudy cover opportunity. Then there's going to be others where it might be a principal style role, and you can look and see who's been cast in that, if that's posted yet, and say, okay, well, if they're looking for that, then they're looking for somebody who's going to be ready to be on stage with somebody of that caliber, and not feel like they're underwater. Because I think hiring, just as auditioning is a risk, hiring is a risk too, right? We are trying to assess if somebody is ready for something out of 10, maybe 10 minutes of getting to know them. Again, that's the importance of hearing people multiple times and keeping track of where people are and what else is happening. But I'm not going to just say no to somebody for an audition if there's not much on the resume. If there's not much on the resume, I'm going to focus more on what's in that recording. Same in the audition as well. What is being presented to me? Of course, I'm going to take into consideration what people have had in their training. We all can look at different schools and know that every school has their strengths and their weaknesses and what they're able to offer. And while we want people at a very high skill level and with great potential, we also know that not everybody's going to have everything. And that's why these are young artist programs, why these are training programs, that there is a staff in place and an environment that is hopefully safely in place that allows people to show their strengths, but also have opportunities to fill in those gaps that they need. You might have an incredible voice, but you're in a program that doesn't have much coaching. Or you might not have a lot of language work. And it is, I think, up to you to know your strengths and your weaknesses really well, and what kind of strengths and weaknesses, what strengths are needed for a certain role or a certain place, and what does each program have to offer that might help fill in those gaps. And if you're not ready for one level of things, then maybe you focus on a different tier. And again, just assessing what each program has to offer and thinking about what to apply for.
Thank you. I think there's a question in the chat, and then I have a couple more if we want to circle back to me.
Yeah, oh, Jessica, great, hi. You mentioned one of the companies hiring some musical theater singers. Can you speak to what what the musical theater opportunities are like at IAP? Yeah, great. So it's going to depend on the company and what repertoire they're offering, of course. The Glimmerglass Festival, under the tenure of Francesca Zambello, has always included a Great American Musical in the season. And we're often looking for opera singers, because it is primarily an opera festival, that also are going to be skilled in being part of an ensemble for a musical. Depending on the dance requirements of a show, we might have a dance call for those that are interested in doing that. It's not going to ask everybody to do that. But the year that we did West Side Story with the Jerome Robbins choreography, you don't know if somebody's going to be able to do that without seeing them do some dancing. But there might be opportunities for people in the ensemble of a show that's not going to be as movement specific. For some of our more featured dancing roles or featured solo opportunities for a musical theater singer, we might do a separate round of auditions from the app tracker application and go more towards musical theater geared performers. But Glimmerglass in particular has a great history of people that are versatile and skilled in both areas. And having that musical theater piece as part of the repertoire is great. We might also ask in some auditions for cold reading of some dialogue. We might say, hey, now that we've heard you, we'd love to hear you go through this dialogue. Can you come back in 10 minutes? Or now, because we all have Zoom, after the audition, we can write to you afterwards and say, hey, can we send you this side for Rolf and The Sound of Music and have you read it in a couple days? So within the program, at least at Glimmerglass, there's one particular coach that is very well versed in musical theater repertoire and is going to be able to help those individuals through the summer, in addition to those that are more opera focused.
Fabulous. Dorothy, you want to just keep going?
Yes, sure. So I have an etiquette question for you. I know that a lot of young or just singers in general, they don't even have to be young. After a live audition in particular, a lot of people want feedback. And I know that some companies are happy to do that, or they even offer it from the beginning, but is there, do you have any tips on etiquette for how to ask for that feedback? Is that something that you should ask for? And if so, how?
Yeah, great question. So do pay attention to any wording in notifications that might say whether or not feedback is something that can be granted. Whether if it's not mentioned, that doesn't mean no, but you feel free to reach out. I would always say wait to ask for feedback until after the hiring process is done. Wait until you know whether or not you got the job, and then write and say, thank you so much for the opportunity to audition. I'm wondering if you would be able to share any feedback about my audition. Some places will say, we're not able to. Some places might not get back to you. Some places, sorry, get a sip of water. Some places might say, we'll get back to you in a couple weeks. Know that that feedback, if it comes, is based specifically on that one opportunity that they had to hear you on that one given day. And that's how I focus on giving it when I do send it, is what happened that day. Maybe this is an anomaly that day. Maybe this is something that is a recurring thing. I can't gauge that for you. You need to take this information to your teachers and coaches and spend your time processing it to see, okay, is this maybe just a specific opinion of this individual? Or, oh, you know what, I really do need to figure this out and I need to address this. Because what we do is so subjective, right? And what one person thinks, sometimes we need to disregard, and other times we should take it seriously and use your gut, listen to your team around you, and process that in that best way. But again, that's only, and often that is coming very much later, so it's going to be what they can best put together from their notes, or perhaps reviewing the video of your audition.
Thank you. I have just one other question, and that is about social media and website presence. When you're reviewing applications, obviously you're getting pre-screening videos, you're getting a kind of a curated look at the artist applying. When you do inevitably run across their website or social media, are there any things as an administrator that you look for or that stick out to you as, a positive or oh, I wish I hadn't known that about this person while reviewing their application? Any kind of tips for young artists specifically looking, to attract work from programs?
Sure. From the outset at the initial application round and pre-screening, frankly, I don't have time to go through and look for everybody's website and everybody's social media. We ask on the application for people to include a website link if they have one. Certainly not a requirement, but it is helpful. When it comes to looking at maybe in the hiring process and we're narrowing things down, we might look and see, okay, do they have a Facebook page? Do they have a website? What's on it? Are there other clips? I think everybody needs to keep good track of what is up there, what is current, what is not current. Of course, there may be some things up there that somebody posted that you can't get down, that you can't get down and you want to get down, but I'm certainly looking at what years things have been posted in and trying to think as recently as possible. But think good professional posting. I'm just gonna see what it is. It might not affect if there are things that come off negative or things that come off unprofessional. I may think twice about it, just like how sometimes there's unprofessional behavior in an audition process that affects if you get considered. The way you treat the door monitor, the way you treat the pianist is very important. There have been people that have lost the job before they've ever walked in the room. So in a similar way, the internet is forever. And if you take it down, there's also could be a screenshot of something out there too. So, be thoughtful about how you use it. There is great power in the social media and your web presence, and just be very specific in how you tailor that. And yeah, we'll see what's there. And if there's no presence, that's okay as well. Some people just do not feel that that's the way they best express themselves. And if you give a great audition and I can't find you on the internet, that's okay. But if I do find you on the internet, make sure again that it appears professional and that it reflects who you are.
Thank you.
Great. I had a couple of questions as well. First, I wondered, are there certain prerequisites that singers should have, whether it's like something on their resume, a certain amount of school that they've completed before applying to a program like Des Moines?
So, well, there's not a cap on the age range at the front end of it all. As I would not be applying for professional level programs as a high school student. And for many of the professional summer programs, well, I would say for year-long programs such as Minnesota, Houston, Los Angeles, any of those full season gigs, I would not be applying for those until you're about to complete your studies. So if you are planning to go from undergraduate to grad school, do not apply yet. If you're in the middle of your master's, do not apply yet. Wait until you know that you're eligible and you've completed your studies. For the summer festivals, that's different because we're out of school in the summer generally, and that can be folks that maybe are still in their undergraduate studies. It tends to be, well, it's not always the case, but it tends to be folks who have at least finished their senior year of college. Rare exception of somebody more in their undergraduate studies at a program where they are being paid for the opportunity. Of course, we know there are many opportunities that are either tuition based, or there's no tuition, it's a fellowship, but you're not being paid. Those may be more focused to people earlier in their studies. And then on the resume itself, again, no particular prerequisites. Again, where are you in your level of musicianship skills, language skills, acting, performing skills, to execute the repertoire that is right for you. So voices come into their own at different times, right? There's some people that may be more ready for the professional scene with their repertoire earlier, and there's others that need more time, and that's okay. And know where you are. Avoid comparing yourself to others. Be aware of what others are doing, but focus on your journey, and knowing that if you don't have much experience with recitative and you're applying for a professional gig where they're going to hire you for a role that has a lot of recitative, then you need to get that together pretty quick. So think about what you know you need to do the job well, and whether or not you've had those experiences yet.
Great. And for teachers that are advising their students, if you have a student that is, dead set on applying to a particular program, and they've come to ask you for a letter of recommendation, etc., what is some language that we can use to either communicate that we are enthusiastic about the student's level of preparation for that program, or maybe to indicate that this is a very promising singer, but someone who might be more appropriate for this opportunity in a few years and not right now?
Again, there's no harm in applying to something and seeing where you fit in that process. Again, will depend on your means and your availability for things, because if you apply, you should think about, am I really available for the audition? Am I really available for the gig? And am I ready for the gig? For teachers, I think it's important to be honest in those letters. We want to know what the student does well, and we want to know where they're coming from, where their areas of growth have been, because again, we don't get that backstory in the live audition. Having a little bit of that information is helpful, and speaking to the areas of growth, and maybe how they're working on that, how they're addressing that. That is really helpful. I don't want that this person is the best thing ever and they're all ready to go. And maybe they are, but I want more than that. I want, and that it can be done very respectfully. Want to know what, where areas of improvement and growth are, and get a little bit more information about the person than we can get from them singing that one piece in 5-10 minutes. Yeah.
Fabulous. And I have one more question, and I if anybody else has them, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Actually, before I do that, what would be a good way, if anybody is watching this later or it occurs to them, what would be a good way to maybe get in touch with you about a question? Is there an email? Do we just email Des Moines? What's a good way to get in contact?
Yeah, the best way to reach me would be at my email at Des Moines Metro Opera. I'll put it in the chat as well, but it's APERRIELLO at DMMO.org. So just the first initial of my first name and then my last name at DMMO.org. That would be the best way to be in touch, and please feel free to.
Fabulous. And then I was wondering, as you've been involved with various companies, programs, in a number of different roles, what do you sort of see as the role of a young artist program in the development of a singer or of a pianist or a conductor or a director? And where do you see that? How have you seen that evolving, and where do you feel like that's going?
Yeah, I think it is, we're looking for going to be a great opportunity for both the artist and for the company. The company wants to really get to know this artist and see if they can build a relationship longer than just that one specific opportunity. And some companies in their hiring may be thinking more than just what is this particular season, but what place might this individual have in the industry beyond their tenure in this position, because these are all short-term things, whether it be a summer or a 9-month gig, and thinking about that longevity and that potential and trajectory. I think it's important for the artist to think about how they are as a citizen of the company, how they are a citizen of the place in which they'll be living, how they become part of that community, not just on the stage, but with patrons, with community partners. And that, I think, is an area where all companies are striving to grow and continue their work. And we want people who want to be part of that. And I think the companies have a responsibility to find people who will be part of that. And artists should be striving to bring their full selves to their work. We want great performance, but we want great people. We want great citizens. And the more that, yes, we want to figure out that perfect technique and that perfect vowel, but how do you say that story? What does it mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to the community? That I think companies are looking more and more at how they relate to the world around them and the world going forward. And the more that there can be this symbiotic relationship between artists and companies in doing that, again, it's both sides. So look forward to seeing how that continues to evolve.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Alan, for taking this hour with us and with our members today. We are so appreciative. And for those of you who have joined us for this hour, thank you so much. Hope that this is valuable to you. And if you have any ideas for future events that you'd like to see, this is a resource that we offer free of charge to our members and to anybody else who finds this sort of information valuable. So please keep letting us know how we can best serve you in that capacity, and we'll kind of try to keep providing content that's relevant to your teaching lives.